There was once a wealthy and respected man who had two sons. He loved them both deeply and provided everything they needed. His home was filled with abundance, and his family lacked nothing. The older son worked faithfully alongside his father, helping manage the family estate. The younger son, however, wanted something more. He dreamed of adventure, independence, and a life beyond the boundaries of his father's home. One day, the younger son approached his father with a shocking request. "Father, give me the share of the inheritance that belongs to me." This was a painful thing for a son to say. In that culture, an inheritance was normally received after a parent's death. By asking for it early, the son was essentially saying that he cared more about the money than about his relationship with his father. Yet the father did not argue. He did not force his son to stay. Instead, he divided his property and gave the younger son the portion that belonged to him. Not many days later, the younger son gathered all his belongings and set out for a distant country. He left behind his family, his responsibilities, and the loving protection of his father's house. At first, life seemed wonderful. The young man had money, freedom, and excitement. He spent lavishly on whatever he desired. He attended parties, bought expensive things, and surrounded himself with people who seemed to enjoy his company. Everywhere he went, he was welcomed and admired. For a time, he believed he had found happiness. But the happiness was temporary. The money that had once seemed endless began to disappear. Day after day, he spent more and more until eventually there was nothing left. The wealth he had demanded from his father was completely gone. Then disaster struck. A severe famine spread throughout the land. Food became scarce, jobs became difficult to find, and people struggled simply to survive. The young man suddenly found himself alone. The friends who had enjoyed his wealth disappeared. No one wanted to help him. No one offered him food or shelter. Desperate, he searched for work and eventually found a job with a local citizen who sent him into the fields to feed pigs. For the people listening to Jesus tell this story, this detail carried great meaning. Pigs were considered unclean animals. Feeding pigs was one of the lowest jobs imaginable. The young man's situation became so terrible that he began to envy the pigs. He was so hungry that he wished he could eat the food they were eating, yet no one gave him anything. There, surrounded by hunger, loneliness, and regret, he finally came to his senses. He began to remember his father's house. He remembered the kindness of his father. He remembered the servants who worked there. Even they had enough food to eat and a place to sleep. Then he said to himself, "How many of my father's hired servants have food to spare, and here I am starving to death. I will arise and go to my father." As he thought about returning home, shame filled his heart. He knew he had wasted everything. He knew he had dishonored his father. He knew he did not deserve forgiveness. Still, he decided to return. He prepared a speech. "Father, I have sinned against heaven and against you. I am no longer worthy to be called your son. Treat me as one of your hired servants." The young man expected rejection. He expected judgment. He expected to spend the rest of his life trying to repay what he had lost. With these thoughts in his mind, he began the long journey home. Every step was difficult. He carried the weight of his mistakes with him. He wondered how his father would react when he saw him. But while the son was still a long way off, something amazing happened. His father saw him. The father had never stopped watching for his son's return. Day after day, he had looked down the road, hoping for the moment he would see him again. The instant he recognized his son in the distance, he was filled with compassion. Without hesitation, the father ran toward him. In those days, respected men did not run publicly. Yet the father did not care about tradition or dignity. His love for his son was greater than anything else. When he reached him, he threw his arms around him and kissed him. The son immediately began his prepared confession. "Father, I have sinned against heaven and against you. I am no longer worthy to be called your son." But before he could finish speaking, the father interrupted him. He called to the servants and said, "Quick, bring the best robe and put it on him. Put a ring on his finger and sandals on his feet." The robe was a sign of honor. The ring represented authority and belonging. The sandals showed that he was not a servant but a member of the family. Then the father gave another command. "Bring the fattened calf and kill it. Let us eat and celebrate." The father explained his joy by saying, "For this son of mine was dead and is alive again. He was lost and is found." A great celebration began. Music filled the air. People gathered together. The household rejoiced because the lost son had returned home. Meanwhile, the older son was working in the fields. As he approached the house, he heard music and dancing. Confused, he asked a servant what was happening. When he learned that his younger brother had returned and that his father was celebrating, he became angry. He refused to enter the house. The father came outside and pleaded with him, but the older son complained. He spoke of all the years he had faithfully served without receiving such a celebration. Then the father gently replied, "My son, you are always with me, and everything I have is yours. But we had to celebrate and be glad because your brother was dead and is alive again. He was lost and is found." This parable reveals the heart of God. The father represents God's endless love and mercy. The younger son represents those who wander away and make mistakes. No matter how far someone has fallen, God is ready to forgive those who return to him with sincere hearts. The message of the prodigal son is one of hope, grace, and restoration. It reminds us that God's love is not based on our perfection but on his compassion. When a lost person turns back to God, heaven rejoices. What was lost can be found, what was broken can be restored, and those who return to God are welcomed with open arms.